Rareware. There aren't very many names in gaming as legendary as Rare. Or at least it used to be legendary. Ever since Rare was acquired by Microsoft in the early 2000s, they have struggled to develop anything noteworthy at all. Sure, Cameo and Viva Pinata were pretty good, but other than that, there really isn't much from Rare. Ever since the controversial Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts received such lukewarm reviews, Microsoft has categorized Rare as a non-seller and have relegated them to the Kinect division of Xbox. Most of the staff of Rare had quit by then, and at that time, most of the rest of them jumped ship. Fast forward to 2012. A whole bunch of former Rare employees that worked on the Banjo-Kazooie series hopped on Twitter and announced their intent to create a spiritual sequel to the beloved Banjo-Kazooie series. And thus, Yooka-Laylee was born, and what followed was one of the most successful and one of the quickest Kickstarter campaigns of all time. But does Yooka-Laylee live up to the hype it generated? And more importantly, does it live up to the Banjo-Kazooie name? Find out in my review. Enjoy.
Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. I'm rocking my pants.
The story of Yooka-Laylee is so incredibly bare bones and simple it is actually impressive. The evil capital B of Hivory Towers, an evil publishing company, the very idea of which gives me a chuckle, has decided to steal all the books in the world to gain a monopoly on literature. When he discovers that if he steals a legendary tome called The One Book, he can control the minds of his customers, he jumps right on it. The One Book, however, does not want to be stolen, and in an act of free will rarely seen by a book, novel, or novella, it rips its own pages out and scatters them across the worlds of the game. It's up to Yooka and Laylee, a chameleon and bat duo, to find the pages and thwart capital B's evil plan. That's it. That's the story. It is every bit as simple and delightful as the plot of Banjo-Kazooie, and it really does feel like the plot of a 5th generation game, which, when you get right down to it, is the entire point of Yooka-Laylee, right? To emulate a Nintendo 64 game? The gameplay of Yooka-Laylee serves much the same purpose as the story, to be a Nintendo 64 game on modern hardware, and it achieves this goal with flying colors. The game is a collectathon platformer, the genre pioneered and I would say perfected by the developers behind Yooka-Laylee. You run around colorful worlds collecting many different inane and unrelated things, like book pages, quill pens, butterflies, and more. Thresholds of progress are decided on how many of what thing you collected and where. It's really an idea from a bygone time, and the collectathon genre really hasn't seen the light of day since the early 5th generation. It has all but died. But Yooka-Laylee aims to change that. The game's controls are wonderfully precise and work like an updated, finely tuned version of the exact same control scheme that we saw in Banjo-Kazooie. The worlds are huge, colorful playgrounds full of scalable platform challenges, fun enemies with lots of personality, and way too much shit to collect. It really is just like a modern Banjo-Kazooie game. But again, I stress, isn't that the entire point? There's been a big fuss online since the release of Yooka that it is too dated, and that there is too much collecting, or that it is unoriginal and uninspired. But really, this is exactly what you should expect from a game that promised to be Banjo-Kazooie with a new coat of paint, and promises nothing more. It is just Banjo-Kazooie with HD graphics. Literally, just that, and nothing more. Well, maybe it takes more cues from Banjo-Tooie, but you get my point. And that's what is so ingenious about this game, and it's also its downfall. The game was made for a very specific group of people, which are people who were children in the mid to late 90s and played Nintendo 64 games, which statistically is less than a third of children from the mid to late 90s. The PlayStation's market share was over 3 times that of the Nintendo 64, and seeing as Banjo-Kazooie was a Nintendo exclusive, and most 3D collectathons opted for the Nintendo 64 over the original PlayStation, it really is a small market when you really get to thinking about it. And that is who Yooka-Laylee is pandering to. If you're not a 25 to 30-year-old collectathon fan who grew up with a Nintendo 64, it may very well be that you're not going to enjoy this game. Even if you do fall into that incredibly specific category, you may well still not enjoy that Yooka has not grown up a single bit since 1997. It certainly is dated, and it certainly isn't apologetic about it at all. This game celebrates that it's dated, and I love that about Yooka-Laylee. But again, isn't that the point? Yooka-Laylee is supposed to be dated. It's supposed to feel like a 5th generation game. That's what we all asked for, and it is exactly what we got. So it can't be faulted for doing exactly what it set out to do, nothing more, nothing less. Graphically speaking, Yooka-Laylee is a decent looking game. It isn't amazing, nor is it ugly. No, not by any stretch of the imagination. Despite some low-resolution environment textures here and there, it is above adequate in every way. The lighting is wonderful, and there is some great post-processing at work on all platforms, and the environments are all lush and decadent. It is an evolution of the style Rare is known for, the style that can be seen in Banjo-Kazooie, Donkey Kong 64, Cameo, and even Viva Pinata. Beautifully detailed and cartoony environments with a lot to look at and a lot of handcrafted elements in each level. However, since it is a Unity game, despite being the most beautiful game that has ever come out of Unity, it has some drawbacks, such as floaty physics on objects and criminally short draw distance on the shadows. Character and item design is as charming as ever. Every single creature, person, or anthropomorphic thing in the world has personality and charm dripping out of every pore in their body, but this was Rare, so it is to be expected. The only real letdown, in my opinion, is the design of the main duo. Yooka and Laylee are a little generic looking if you ask me, especially coming off the designs of Banjo and Kazooie. Laylee just kinda sits on Yuka's head, whereas Kazooie lived in Banjo's backpack. Yuka has no clothes, whereas Banjo wears shorts and that stupid necklace. It's those little details that just make a whole world of difference. Put some goddamn shorts on that lizard and boom! Instant classic, 10 out of 10 design, come on. The audio is where Yooka-Laylee really hits it out of the park. With music by Banjo-Kazooie composer Grant Kirkhope, Yooka sounds like an honest-to-God return to form. Kirkhope assaults your ears with all sorts of tubas, xylophones, and yes, banjos. It's one of the best soundtracks of the year, and may even be better than the soundtrack from the original Banjo-Kazooie. Kirkhope really has literally outdone himself on this one. The voice acting, if you can call it that, is a return to the cut-up gibberish from Banjo-Kazooie and Donkey Kong 64 that Rare had become so fond of in the late 90s. It was a genuine joy to hear it again, and I was smiling from ear to ear when I realized how true to form the game's audio design was. It's fun, it's quirky, and it's full of personality, just like everything else in Yooka-Laylee. The sound effects in Yooka are just as good as the rest of the audio design. Fun, bright, and colorful sound effects that aren't grating and never get old. This game's audio design is on a whole new level. Or rather, an old level. It sounds just like Banjo-Kazooie is all I'm trying to say. At the end of the day, when the dust all settles and everything is said and done, Yooka-Laylee is a lovingly handcrafted tribute to Banjo-Kazooie that was made by the best team on Earth to make such a tribute. But that's all it is. It's a tribute. It fails to capture any real identity of its own, and it seems satisfied to just continue the gameplay and tropes that made Banjo-Kazooie what it was. As a game, it will never escape Banjo-Kazooie, and I don't think it should have to. Yooka-Laylee shouldn't be ashamed to be a Banjo-Kazooie clone. It excels at being one, and it makes us all better for it. Yooka-Laylee is the Banjo 3E that we all asked for, and yet for some reason, people seem unsatisfied. Well, this is what a Banjo 3E would have looked like, and you may not like it, but I sure did. However, it is understandable that you may not want to play a game as dated as this one, and for that reason, I give Yooka-Laylee a 3 out of 5. And there you have it, Yooka-Laylee, a game which is loyal to its Banjo-Kazooie roots to a fault. I enjoyed it a lot, but did you? Tell me in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.